How's everybody doing?
Good.
Excellent. Marcus Guiliano. I'm a local restaurateur, just right over the mountain from Pine Bush. Very scenic ride from here, if anybody's ever gone that way. Beautiful ride, beautiful mountains, beautiful valley. So I'm really excited to be here. I love speaking. I have a lot to say and I get off tangent sometimes, but I will be happy to do Q&A at the end. I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't really like PowerPoints. The only time I ever do a PowerPoint is when I do my smartphone photography seminar, which kind of helps when you can see pictures, good and bad. So other than that, I typically do not do a PowerPoint. And typically I finish my speech when I pull up into the parking lot of where I'm going. So I do plan ahead, but I like what I talk about. And if I have to research, if somebody asks me to do a job, speaking job, and I have to research, I typically don't do it because I'm not comfortable talking about it. I want to talk about my personal experiences, and I want to talk about tips that is going to be beneficial. I want to provide value to everybody. And of course, today's talk is on leadership, and we could, do a bunch of quotes from John Maxwell or any of the other great authors on leadership, and I definitely recommend reading John Maxwell if you want to be a better leader. Any of his books are just awesome. His influence book is great, but he has a really good book on leadership. I'm not going to quote anything out of that book today. I do have a book that I am going to read some quotes out of. And being a leader can be tricky. Being a leader is tricky. And it always involves improving and improving and improving. Andy Masters, who I've met, he has a great book on leadership. This is really an awesome book. So a little bit about me. I own a restaurant in Ellenville, New York for the last 14 years. I'm a professionally trained chef. I went to culinary school in 1991. Worked all over the country, Colorado, West Virginia, went to Europe. Worked for the chef who trained Gordon Ramsay. I'm sure everybody knows who Gordon Ramsay is. The irate chef who's screaming and yelling all the time. And I went to work for Pierre Kaufman. Pierre Kaufman trained Gordon Ramsay, and I really wanted to work. This is 1997. I really wanted to work for Gordon Ramsay because I had his first book. And this was before he was ever on TV. Nobody really knew about him. But I knew he had 2 Michelin stars, and he was on his way to his 3rd Michelin star, which is, a lifelong pinnacle of any European chef, and now American chefs can be rated by Michelin stars in New York and San Francisco and Chicago. And he was fighting for that 3rd star. And I said, I want to go work for him. So at Pierre Kaufman's, which was only 2 blocks away, by the way, I said to one of the cooks, I go, I want to work for Kaufman. I said, I want to work for Gordon Ramsay. And she looked at me and she goes, he will kill you. And I said, really? She goes, yes. You think it's bad here? He will kill you. And I said, okay, I'm fine here getting abused like I am. Chefs are known to abuse the staff below them. So what makes a chef a good leader, right? If a chef abuses their staff. And I see this happen constantly and constantly. And it's happened to me over the years. You have some chefs who are just rude and nasty, who might be very, very talented, but they're just getting no respect. And I have a similar situation happening at my restaurant. I have a chef who's extremely talented. He's under my guidance because I'm the executive chef and he's the head chef of the kitchen, and he has to oversee 5, 6, 7, 8 people, depending upon the time of the year. His food comes out meticulous. It comes out quick. It tastes incredible. I look behind him, and it's like a tornado just hit. I look at the staff, and the staff is running away from him. And I'm like, he just doesn't get that connection. He's doing everything. He keeps making excuses of why people won't do something for him. And he never really faces up to it's his fault. Now, of course, I'm his leader, right? So it's my fault that he's not able to lead. It's driving me crazy. I sit down with him and I coach him, I give him tips, I lead by example, and I could do everything by the playbook in the John Maxwell book with him, and it just doesn't seem to be working. So yes, some people are born leaders, some people can improve their leadership, and I guess some people just aren't cut out to be leaders. Now in the culinary world, to be a leader, this is when I worked at the Greenbrier in West Virginia, which is a fantastic hotel. There's 150 cooks. There's only about 8 management positions between those 150 cooks. And you can make 12 to 15, this was back in the mid-90s. I was making $12 an hour back then. Working 65 hours a week, 75 hours a week, 80 hours a week. I had a nice paycheck. But if I wanted to go the next step up, to be a leader, to be management, I would have taken a pay cut. I would have been going to a $28,000 job and having to now oversee people that I was working with. Now most cooks would be like, that's not a good deal. Why would I take a pay cut to have more responsibility? But for me and several others on staff, we wanted to be that leader. We wanted to step up. We were willing to take the pay cut. The pay cut didn't mean anything because we wanted to lead. We wanted to be in charge. We wanted to help run the show. And I saw a lot of cooks in the organization. Out of 150, you see a lot of cooks. We saw a lot of cooks that were fantastic cooks, that would work circles around everybody else, but couldn't get other people to do things for them. And I knew it back then, as a young apprentice, that that person was not going to be a leader and their full potential was not going to go as far as they could go. Because the chef at the time was not a good cook. He put the time in, but he was a fantastic leader. And that's what upper tier management was looking for at the Greenbrier. They were looking for somebody to lead 150 cooks. They didn't need to be a fantastic cook. They needed to have the basics, they needed to have understanding, but they needed to lead a team of 150 people to get them to cook. I worked for Walter Scheib for a week. Walter Scheib was the chef at the White House for the Clintons. He specifically told me, my job is to get people to cook. I'm not a cook anymore. I hire people to cook, I inspire people to cook, I train people to cook, I lead people to cook. And as a young apprentice, I knew, hey, to get to the next level, that's what had to happen. So, my chef now, it's a work in progress. It's constant meetings. It's constant pointers, tips, anything that I can do to help him, to show him to get to the next level. And is it working? Of course it's working. Is it working as quick as I want to see it work? No. I like to say I'm patient, but how many of us are really, really patient these days? So, work in progress. Most restaurateurs, when I talk to them, I'm going to Nashville next week for 6 days. When I come back, I go to Italy for 2 weeks. And I travel 3, 4, 5 times a year. I get out of my restaurant for almost a week at a time, 5 days at a time. Every other restaurateur I meet is like, I wished I could do what you do. I have to close my restaurant. So I don't close, we stay open. That's the thing that shocks most restaurateurs. How do you stay open and you're not there? How in the world do you do it? And I said, I have a great team. I have a fantastic team. How do you trust those people? How do I not trust the people on my team? If I've hired people on my team I don't trust, why have them on staff? So what is the ideal employee to begin with? Is this somebody who is a phenomenal cook? Or is it somebody who I can train? Is it somebody who's willing to learn? Is it somebody who has IQ versus EQ? Because at some point, that intelligence, my current chef, very intelligent, extremely intelligent, but he doesn't have that emotional quality, doesn't have that EQ that the staff are looking for underneath them. And don't get me wrong, leaders have to be the bad people at certain times. Good cop, bad cop. I do that a lot in my restaurant. I tell somebody else, hey, why is that person doing that again? Can you go tell him that I really don't like that and don't let him catch me doing that? So good cop, bad cop works out really good. And when they do it right, I'm like, wow, I'm so, this is that, I praise them. And they're like smirking, the person who I was the bad cop is like smirking like, it worked. I'm like, of course, So, getting to that next step of being a leader. Now, I want to really talk to you about the banking industry in my community, because we have 4 banks in my community. I do business with 3 of them. I can't stand doing business with 2 of them. I love doing business with the other one. And what's the difference? The culture. You walk in the doors and the culture is just so different as soon as you walk in the door. You know where does culture come from? Leadership. My wife pulls into the bank one day. It's raining out. There's no lines. She's in the drive-thru. She has 3 transactions. The lady gives her the toughest time about 3 transactions. The toughest time. To where my wife emails, calls, and goes down and sits with the branch manager, who, by the way, is really non-existent. 3 transactions, what's the big deal? We don't understand that. I don't understand that as a customer. I have no idea. But with no line and it being rainy out, my wife is like irate and frustrated. And it goes well beyond that, because that's the culture. The other place you walk into, the branch manager sits there, never says hello to anybody. I am a race director for a local race that raises $5,000 to $10,000 a year for the community. It all goes back to sports, food banks. It all goes back to the community. I have to just try to nail her down to give her a sponsorship letter. And you know what? I always get an excuse of why they can't donate anything to my race. A race that's been in the community for 34 years, 35 years. And if they're a part of the community as they say they are, why is it so hard? All she tells me every year is, you missed the deadline. Last year I went 6 months ahead of time. You know what she told me? You missed the deadline. Well, tell me when the deadline is. The tellers who work there, you walk in, never smile. They never say hello. It's really not a good feeling. I walk into the other bank, the branch manager sits down with me at the desk in the lobby and talks to me how business is and what's going on in the community. And I see him at the Chamber of Commerce events. And if he's not there, he says, I really wish I could have gone. What did I miss? They sponsored my race, and I wasn't even a customer. It made me become a customer because they did sponsor the race. So, leaders who develop the culture in a workplace, you're not only leading your team, especially in the banking industry, you're leading a community. It's not what your staff thinks about you. It is, but it's also what the community thinks about you. And as soon as people walk in the door, people know what's going on. You walk in the door to any business, you know what's going on. How quick are you greeted? How friendly are they? If you're not a good leader and you're miserable and your staff's miserable, they're not going to be nice to any customer that walks through the door or answers the phone. You're making it that much harder to have everybody have a great experience. And you know, it'd be nice if work was all fun, but again, that's not the reality of work. And work needs to get done when work needs to get done. So where is that balance at? Where is that balance of being serious and getting the job done? Speaking of great companies, I was on a tour in Colorado at a brewery called Oscar Blues. They've since sold to a big company. They weren't independent. And Dale, named after their flagship Dale's Pale Ale, was the owner. We had a fantastic tour. It was a 2-hour tour. And I noticed something very interesting. A couple things. At 5 o'clock, they have 3 locations. We were at their main facility. At 5 o'clock, 5:15, their pub started filling up. So I said to our tour guide, wow, you guys are getting busy. And we walked through the pub in their brewery, and he starts talking to everybody. I go, wow, you know your customers? He goes, not only those are our customers, those are our employees from our other locations. The place filled up with employees. I was like, wow, that's great. We handed our tour guide, because he let me go climb the ladder and pour grains into one of the beers that they were making, their famous Dale's Pale Ale. He let me pour into there. So I was really impressed. And the tour is amazing. We handed him $100 tip. And he saw what it was. We didn't crumble it up. We handed him a $100 tip. It was 3 of us. He looked at me and he goes, Dale pays me to show you a good time. Dale is the one who signs my paycheck. And of course, now we're a little upset because he's not taking our money. Why? Take our money. And he insisted, Dale pays me to show you a good time. And that's the bottom line. It's like, blown away. Like, where would a guy turn down a $100 tip? Well, because that's their culture. That's their leader. That's what they're paid to do. That's what they love doing. And that's what they do. How could you not buy from a company like that? How can I not support a bank that's supporting a local race? How can I not support a bank where they smile at me when I walk in the door? Simple things make a big difference. A smile, a hello, and be able to get somebody on the phone. It's amazing. And of course, we've all had experiences like that. That's nothing new to anybody. There's a company in Europe, car rental company. I've rented a car twice from them. The last time I rented a car from them, I had to launch a website and a Facebook page to warn other people how bad they are. And I'm not the only one with a website and a Facebook page warning people how bad they are. I had a really bad problem in Pisa with them, where when you sit in an airport for 6 hours trying to get a car, that's a major issue on your vacation. Well, I was connected to the general manager of Italy in the Rome office, and I was told that he would be there on my flight out, so I went there early to meet with the manager to try to resolve things. He wasn't there. All I got from the lady there was, next time you rent from us, we'll give you a discount. I spent almost 8 hours in the airport. We were supposed to watch the sunset on the coast that night in Italy. That didn't happen. My kids were miserable sitting in a parking lot in the Pisa airport. The guy who tried to help us swiped my credit card, 9 times. We had like a $3,000 charge on our credit card. I told him to stop. He could care less. I was on the phone with the main office in Rome, while he's on the phone with who knows who, and she goes, just have this guy call me. It was such a disconnect. And then when I got back to the States and I started reading all the reviews, I'm not the only person. Believe me, you go online and look them up, there are handfuls and handfuls of other Facebook groups and Facebook organizations that are warning people to stay away from this company. And they'll all go back to leadership and culture. I'm going to Italy in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, not renting from them. I don't care what kind of discount they give me. I'm not renting from them, it's not worth the discount. They gave me the car for free, it's not worth it. Andy has some amazing stuff here, and it's so easy to read. This is literally the easiest leadership book to read. This is what a page looks like in it. Super simple, very profound stuff. So the reason I like this book is because it has what leaders say and what leaders don't say. So I just placed an idea suggestion box outside my office. That's what a leader shouldn't say. Instead, Friday, we're going to have an off-site retreat in a fun atmosphere for some team building and creative brainstorming. Now, in my business, every Saturday we have a meeting. We don't call it a meeting, we call it a workshop. Because we all come to the workshop with ideas. And all the ideas are there to help us either promote the restaurant, do something more logistical, something that makes more sense. We're not perfect. We're not the perfect restaurant at all. I'm not a perfect leader. My staff's not perfect. But we all brainstorm. Instead of having that box outside, drop your ideas here, we sit down together, we brainstorm. The meeting runs an hour typically. The workshop runs an hour. I'm very conscious on not saying meeting. It's always called a workshop, sometimes a seminar. And we do fun things. Because we get new beers every week, so we get to taste new beers. If we get a new wine, we get to taste new wines. If we have new food specials, we get to taste food. So in my atmosphere, it's fun. So how can it be fun in your atmosphere? My goal is just to keep things moving along this year. That's not what a leader should say. Instead, follow me and we'll set records. This whole book is on how you say things. It's the same meaning, but what exactly is coming out of our mouth? How are we articulating the words to our staff, to our team members? Here's our new mission statement, which a consultant group helped the board of directors create. called a business years ago, and I asked them for their mission statement. They told me that was private. This was a big company, a really big company. I said, your mission statement's private? They go, our mission statement's private. Now my mission statement, 13 years ago, 12 years ago, we sat down with the staff in a workshop, and we all talked about what our values are, what we want to have the guest experience as, and we all collectively came together. My staff wrote, my team members wrote our mission statement. So when I read that, I was like, wow, that's exactly what we did. And because the staff writes it, the team members write it, resonates. Now, of course, we don't have the same team members as we do 12 years ago, but we have the same mission. And about 3 years ago, we updated it based upon our team members, and some of our team members were there for 3, 4, 5 years. So we didn't rewrite it much. But when we handed out a work application, when somebody walks in to work at Aroma Time, the front page of that application is our mission statement. And that top copy is for them to keep. And that's when we start with that mission statement, when they fill out their application. So they know right up front what we are, who we are. And I love it when people come to me, which a lot of people do now, who know with the restaurant. They know what our mission statement is ahead of time. They love our food, they love our concept, they love our culture. We happen to be green certified, we're farm to table, we support a lot of independence. So our whole theme is unique. A lot of other places are farm to table, a lot of places do support independent, but when you walk into my bar, you see 250 spirits. There's no Jack Daniels, there's no Absolute, there's no Grey Goose, there's no Patron. Those are big, faceless corporations. When we buy from somebody who is actually a real business in a real community providing real jobs. Johnny Walker doesn't even exist anymore. Sure, you can buy the product, but when it was sold to a company called Diageo, which owns Guinness, and 200 other brands, they immediately shut down the plant and laid off hundreds and hundreds of workers. So that small little town in Scotland is in an uproar because all these people lost their job because now Johnny Walker sold. Latrobe, remember Latrobe? Rolling Rock? Doesn't exist anymore. Budweiser bought it. What's the first thing Budweiser did? Shut down the plant. Almost 300 people lost their jobs in Latrobe. Rolling Rock is now made in the Budweiser plant in Newark. They can do it at a fraction of the staff. So for me, I work hard for my money. We all work hard for our money. Why waste our money buying from these big companies who could care less about our communities? Whether it's here locally or it's abroad. So we have a really strong stance. I'm taking 20 people. I'm going to Italy. The part I forgot to mention was I'm taking 20 people with me. We're doing a tour with our guests. And we're visiting all the small wineries that we do business with. All the family-run wineries that we personally know the families, I'm taking 20 people with me. It's not the kindness of my heart, it's $4,000 a person, but you're getting a great experience because you're touring with a chef who has a connection. It's just not a tour where you get dropped off. We do tours around the Hudson Valley. We do wine and beer tours. And the neat thing is, I go in with you. I drive the van, I go in with you, and at one of the wineries we went to, there's a new tasting girl in our reserve room. She didn't know much about the wine. I'd been serving the wine for 14 years. I knew a lot more than her. I very kindly, in a leadership manner, took over the tasting. When we got back into the parking lot, everybody on the tour said, oh my gosh, thank you, thank goodness you were there, because she couldn't answer our questions. Much more different than a limo driver parking in the parking lot and saying, go have a good time, I'll see you in an hour and a half, right? So our restaurant's a little different than most restaurants. We know the mine owner who mines our salt. The lady who makes our sugar in Bali has been to my restaurant twice. So it's all about a personal connection with things that we believe in, values that we believe in. Hey, that's sales and marketing job, not ours. Anything when somebody says that's not my job drives me crazy. But in a retail setting, especially my setting, it's everybody's job to market. It's everybody's job to pick up the pieces. It's everybody's job to make sure that the guest is having the best experience. And I just had to sit down with one of my cooks last week and say, how do you think our paychecks, how do you think your paychecks get to you? It's from the guest. How do you think guests come through our door? How do you think guests come back through our door? And I sat down and explained this whole process, and I say, so when an order comes into the kitchen and you're doing something else that might not be as important, that over now supersedes. We now have to take care of the most important thing in our operation, which is the guest at that point. That's where everything happens, at the guest. Really, the paychecks that go to my staff are compliments of my guest. And that's what we instill into our staff. Compliments of our guests. That's how you're getting paid this week. Upper management is making us cut costs again. Now I gotta tell you, I don't know of any business that's not cutting costs here and there. In my business, food is constantly going up and up and up. Delivery fees are going up and up and up. Everything goes up and up and up. So for me, I'm always constantly cutting costs. I'm trying to figure out, how can I keep my quality? How can I keep my pricing fair? But how can I make a living? So of course, we go to workshop mode. And the staff comes up with ideas. What can we do to make a difference here? What can we do to save anything? What can we do that makes more sense? And of course, the most sense is more business. In the restaurant term, in the restaurant world, revenue kills all evil. So more sales, the better off we are, as long as your margins are correct, which a lot of restaurants don't have correct margins, which is a whole other topic. I'm in charge and I deserve respect. Something not to say. Instead say, I want to earn your respect. Hey, performance reviews aren't for another 6 months. Performance reviews, or actually just sit down casual conversations, make a huge difference in employee retention. We make a point of trying to sit down with our staff members every 2 months. And we don't call it a review, we call it a catch-up. Nobody's saying what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. Hey, how's everything going? What's happening in your life now? What are your short-term goals coming up? And of course, the conversation quickly goes into, I really respect what you do for us. I really admire your wine knowledge. I really appreciate your dedication. I've noticed you haven't called in sick in 6 months or whatever. Thank you very much for that. Thank you that I can always rely upon you. So the conversation goes to that very quickly. But then, of course, I like to teach my staff, I want to help them get their next job. So if you're at my restaurant, especially as a cook in the kitchen, a young aspiring cook, an apprentice, I want to help you get your next job. Come to me. I know you're not going to be here forever. Am I going to get 6 months out of you, a year out of you, 2 years, 3 years? I usually get about 2 to 3 years out of a cook. I know you're going to leave. And my thought process is, if you're going to leave, I want you to go to a place where you're going to learn more. You know why? Because you may come back to me someday. And I want you more valuable when you come back. And that's happened several times. Hired a person last week. He opened the restaurant with me 14 years ago. He worked with me 5 years ago. And now he's back. And he's more valuable than he was to me before. So these kind of conversations are crucial to have with your team, the people who you're leading. Because we're all not going to work the same job forever. That doesn't happen that often anymore. So you'll get a lot more respect. I wanted to send somebody to Puerto Rico to work who was really seriously thinking about it. He just couldn't work out the logistics of it. A friend of mine there owns a very, very well-respected restaurant. I said, if you want to learn, I got a guy who's going to teach you the next level and the next level above that. You're just too valuable to me in your current position to let you go. I feel like that with a lot of people, right? This person rocks. If every chef held me back, it'd be a sad story. I would be very upset with a lot of people. What to say instead? There's a management position open in another department that I'd like to recommend you to.
What's the name of your book again?
The name of this book is Things Leaders Say. The name of my book that I wrote this year is 50 Mistakes That Business Owners Make.
It's a good book.
I hope so. I think so. Hey, we can't stop and celebrate now. There's plenty of hard work ahead of us. Instead, Friday we're going to stop and celebrate the hard work and success we've accomplished as a team. We started closing one day a week, Wednesdays, back in May. Best thing we ever did. The staff gets together on Wednesdays. We have a van, a 15-passenger van. We've did so many staff trips this summer that the staff really bonded, and it was amazing that they actually looked forward. They actually wanted to come and join other staff members on their day off. We did brewery tours, winery tours. We even did a beach day where if the van isn't filled up with our team members, we allow them to invite their friends. So that was a huge, huge, huge success. I still can't believe I haven't found time to work on my #1 project. I feel like that all the time. Instead, today's the day I'm going to schedule 2 hours to work on my #1 project. For me, I say today's the day, tomorrow's the day I have to get to work at 5:30 in the morning, so I have 2 hours to work on my project. There's a lot of mornings that I do go to work at 5:30, 6:30 this morning. We don't open until 4 o'clock. But again, there's always something to do. There's always something to look forward to. There's always something to improve upon. There's always something to get to the next level. That's how I see it, whether it's marketing, whether it's leading my team. We do a ton of staff training, tons and tons and tons. We do more than probably any restaurant out there because it's a weekly workshop and we really rely upon the feedback from our team members and their input, and we allow them to make decisions. One of the biggest decisions that we allow them to make is they have $50 unquestioned. If a guest is sitting at a table and a guest has a bad experience, they have $50 to make the guest happy. If they need to spend more than $50, then we say you need to get management approval. I've had one person spend $65. They didn't get my approval. I don't care. They made the guest happy. They made the guest happy. One thing that leaders need to really understand: to stop micromanaging, stop the small things. The small things don't matter. It's 15 bucks more. Sure, it broke our policy. Nobody's ever done that before. But that made the guest happy. That's the name of the game. That's the culture we're instilling. Make the guest happy. You have everyone who works for us is like, I've never been in a restaurant that I have $50 to do whatever. If you need to go to the store and buy them something, do it. If you need to get them a cab, do it. If you need to comp their whole dinner, do it. And that's what this person did. They comped their whole dinner. It was $65. Sure, there was only one thing wrong. It was maybe a legitimate $20 comp. But the people were really upset. So why argue with them? Just comp the whole thing. Make them happy. Don't charge them. We have a 100% guarantee policy on our food, and our staff knows that. So the small stuff isn't worth it. Empower your staff. Trust your staff. And be that person that can take a vacation. Just say, hey, my restaurant's taken care of. My staff is there for me. My one lead person is actually spending house sitting for us while we're gone. She's gonna be in our house for 2 weeks. So, and she's happy to do it. She actually volunteered to do it. When a staff member goes, nobody's gonna be in the office tomorrow morning, why don't you forward the cell phones to my cell phone so we don't miss a call? That's pretty awesome. Because they know, you miss a call, you miss business. You miss a business, you miss income. When you call on the phone, and you get a recording, it's not good customer service. People want to talk to somebody live. We've been forwarding our phones for 13 years. We've been open 14 years. 13 years we started forwarding our phones. If you call at 3 a.m. and say you lost your credit card, you left your purse in the restaurant, we're going to answer the phone. Not the best thing in the morning at 3 o'clock for us to answer the phone, but we're going to answer the phone. You're not going to leave a message. I can't help them at 3 o'clock. But people have called and done that before. And what have we said? And when I get to the restaurant at 8 o'clock in the morning, I will call you and look for your wallet. Now, if you lost your wallet and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're freaking out, talking to somebody is going to make it better. Even though they can't really help you, to know that at 8 o'clock in the morning, they're going to be there to call you and look for your wallet makes a huge, huge difference. So I have staff members that say, I'll take the phones tomorrow. You and your wife are going to be in New York City at a wine tasting. I'll take the phones. Great, take the phones. These are all things that are done unprompt, unasked. They come in and check in orders for us when we're not there. I'll check the order in. Well, the one girl drives 10 minutes to the restaurant just to check an order in for us. So, all right, Q&A. Is everybody in here a leader, a branch manager, a supervisor? Okay, that's what I thought. So everybody has their own. What are some of the challenges you face?
Keeping everyone motivated throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Motivated. Motivated to show up on time sometimes is a challenge, right? So we're dealing with like a whole different generation. We've gone through the biggest cultural shift ever in the last 20 years. I mean, imagine how more productive we were if we couldn't have phones at work. My wife and I were having this conversation. And sure, we have a policy that says no phones at work. And sure, there's a policy in school that says no phones in school. And my son and daughter are texting me from class. Like, how does that happen, right? So, does anybody have any ideas for motivation? Does anybody do, I mean, great rewards are great, things like that. I like to sit down with people and find out what motivates them. I've never done an employee of the month. I've never thought it was, I've always looked at an employee of the month if you have put one person on a pedestal. Imagine having 2 kids or 3 kids, having a kid of the month. There's my son of the month this month. How about the other 2 that are just standing there and saying, well, what happened to me this month? Right, so I've never done employee of the month, but I do recognitions. I do lots of recognitions. If I go to the grocery store and have to buy something, like I'll go down the natural aisle and buy like Kind bars. And I come back and I give them to the staff. They're like, oh, cool, awesome, thanks, right? It was just something that they didn't even earn. I just said, here you go. We used to hand out lottery tickets, and they thought that was fun, but nobody really wins in scratch-offs, right? Or nobody ever really did win in scratch-offs. But needless to say, they still like scratch-offs. Or I'll say, hey, go next door to the bakery and grab everybody a muffin. Does anybody do anything for rewards or keep people motivated?
I think a lot of us cook and we bring in things, and Laura is a cook and she brings in a lot of things to work.
That's a great idea. In fact, I forgot what book I read, but home-baked goods were one of the #1 rewards.
Yes, and Martha cooks.
Bananas.
Speaking of empanadas,
And bananas.
My wife baked banana bread today, and it's sitting in the kitchen. It's sitting in the kitchen, and when the staff comes in, they're very happy. So, I mean, like I said, you have to figure out what motivates people.
My question.
Not many people are motivated by money, believe it or not. They're motivated by recognition and listening to. As a leader, you have to listen. You really, really have to be a good listener and understand what that person's after. I mean, you give a person a $1 raise, and sometimes it's the best thing in the world. They think you're the king, or sometimes they're like, $1? You mean $1? What's that going to do for me, right? But you give them a plaque or something, you do something, and you honor them somehow, and it's like, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you. And sometimes it's just a simple, thank you. I appreciate the work you did for me today. Every night I walk out of my restaurant, I try to thank somebody, personally. Thank you for what you did today. I like what you did. We have something at our team meetings where it's called O Snap, where we give somebody an O Snap, which means and my team members do this as well. So it's not only me telling Martha that she did a great job last week when they were swamped on Thursday night. It's one of you telling Martha, hey, I noticed you were busy last Thursday night. You worked by yourself. Good job. Or I worked with Martha, and I want to say she rocks. She kicks butt. She wasn't on her. I mean, if I wasn't working with her, or working with her and I was a pleasure on Thursday night. So our team members compliment each other too. They have to compliment the staff, one person on staff every week, and they also have to do a happy customer moment. How awesome is it to have a happy customer? It's great, isn't it? Right? Everybody's smiling, right? Well, now they have an opportunity to tell their happy customer moment in a forum, in a workshop setting. So that brings back a good memory, brings back a good feeling. Other questions?
You said you have a lot of, like the staff has changed, so we are faced with a lot of millennials. How do you keep them motivated? Because they're a little different breed to keep motivated all the time.
Turn everything into a video game, right? Right. Millennials are tough. They want everything now. Simon Sinek. Has everybody heard of Simon Sinek?
He has.
He's got some good YouTube videos dealing with millennials. I would suggest watching those. He's the expert on millennials.
Simon
Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, Simon Sinek. He has some really, really good stuff on millennials. But it's it's like I hire these people, and it's like they have no respect for my business. No respect. It's like, I'm not coming in today. In fact, I'm not coming in tomorrow. I'm like, but we need you to like open the doors today. Yeah, I'm going with my brother to the Jersey Shore. I'm like, you couldn't tell me that 10 days ago when we were doing the schedule? I just decided to do it now. It's really like they don't have that same level of courtesy, respect, dedication. But I've also found it in some other generations as too. It's like kind of like contagious a little bit here and there. Not often, but I'm like, really? You're 55 and you just did that to me? So, it doesn't happen often at all, but just sometimes things shock you. But yeah, millennials are tough. And I don't believe it. They're in it for really the money, or a lot of them aren't in it for the money. They're in it for the gratification. They're in it for the quick feeling. They're in it because they're used to getting everything they want, communicating how they want, when they want. And several years ago, 5 years ago, I had an 18-year-old washing dishes for me. I like to do this with all my staff. When I sit down with them, I'm like, what else do you like to do? Tell me what other skills you have. And I found out that my 18-year-old dishwasher was a great web designer. Fantastic web designer. So guess what he started doing 2 days a week? Doing websites for me, updating our website. So here's a kid that really wasn't happy washing dishes, but he knew 2 days a week he could sit in the office and create and be in his creative zone, right? And that made him really happy. So what are people passionate about? And I try to teach people, I really try to teach people, start something on your own. You can make so much exposure and money and share your passion on the internet that just coming to work here, is that just really enough for you? Just coming to work and punching the clock and then going home? There's so many other things you got to be passionate about to explore and do and express yourself. There's just other ways that people can really express themselves. Like I said, sometimes they're not in it for the money. In fact, a lot of these kids don't even understand the value of money, right? So what do they know about a paycheck and balancing, checkbook and paying bills?